Welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going to tackle the world of event planning.
Uh-oh. Sounds complicated.
Yeah, it can be. But whether you're someone who's putting together their own event, or maybe you're just curious about what makes those successful gatherings so memorable, you're in the right place.
All right, I'm ready. Let's do it.
So, we'll be going through this professional guide we found from Indeed, but we're not just going to be going through the motions of checklists and stuff.
Okay, good.
We're going to get into those like insider tips,
Yeah.
like those aha moments that take an event from just ordinary to extraordinary.
Yeah, I like that.
So to make things fun, let's think about it kind of like we're planning a heist movie.
A heist movie.
Yeah. But instead of stealing jewels, we're stealing hearts and minds with these amazing events.
All right, I like where you're going with this.
I knew you would. So let's start with you. What does Indeed say is the most crucial first step when planning an event?
Well, they emphasize this idea of setting a clear goal right from the start. They call it identifying your event's North Star.
North Star. I like that. So it's not as simple as just saying, hey, let's have a party.
No, definitely not. You got to go deeper. We're talking about defining that core purpose. Is this a fundraiser? Are we trying to hit a specific goal? Is it like a networking thing where you're focused on connections? Or is it purely for celebration, like making memories with your friends and fam?
Okay, so you got to figure out that North Star first. But what about the budget? That always seems to be the tricky part.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Indeed's really big on not just setting a budget, but breaking it down into all those different pieces. Like, think of it like a pie chart.
Ooh, a pie chart. I like visuals.
Me too. So you got to figure out, like, what's taking up the biggest slice of that pie? Is it the venue rental? Is it food? What about entertainment? And then there are the smaller slices, decorations, rentals. You can't forget about transportation sometimes.
So true. I've definitely been there, done that, and underestimated costs before, which, let me tell you, is not a fun situation.
Oh, I bet.
That actually reminds me, the article also mentioned something about a surprise cushion, which sounds like a smart move, but how do you plan for the unexpected?
That's the point of the cushion, right? It's there for, like, last-minute stuff that comes up, maybe, like, a vendor increases their price or you suddenly need more equipment, things like that.
Okay, so it's like a financial safety net.
Exactly. Better to overestimate a little than to be caught off guard. A good rule is to add 10 or 15% to your initial budget just in case.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've got our North Star goal. We mapped out our budget. What's next? Got to find the perfect spot to host this thing, right?
Exactly. Venue's super important. Indeed, really highlights that you got to consider who your audience is.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Yeah, like a formal event would be perfect in a big fancy ballroom. But if you're doing, I don't know, like a creative workshop, maybe something more unique, like an art space would be better.
Totally. I'm thinking like stuffy conference room versus a rooftop party with a view.
Yeah, exactly. The venue sets the tone and the vibe for everything. So it's not just about how many people you can fit in there. It's about creating that atmosphere that matches your event's whole purpose. Sometimes a really unique venue can be what gets people to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've got our goal, we've got the budget, we've got the venue. What about the actual program for the event itself? How do we make sure it's not just a boring snooze fest?
Well, indeed, they talk about the program like a roadmap for everyone who's attending to kind of guide their experience and build up excitement.
All about building anticipation, huh?
Yeah, it's like a story with a beginning, middle, and end.
Oh, I like that. So we're not just talking about a simple list of speakers or activities. We're thinking bigger picture, like creating a whole narrative flow.
You got it. You might start with an opening session, then maybe break into smaller groups or workshops for some deeper dives, and then end with a big finale that gets everyone feeling inspired and connected.
Makes sense. A clear program definitely helps attendees get the most out of it. But what about all that behind-the-scenes stuff? Things don't always go perfectly right.
Oh, you're telling me.
The article mentions backup vendors. And I suddenly thought about that story you told about a wedding DJ who... Well, let's just say things didn't go according to plan there.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great example of why it's crucial to have backups.
Okay, so it's more than just having a friend who can play music if things go wrong.
Oh, yeah. For anything super important like catering, entertainment, photography, you want to have backups, people who have similar styles and rates. You got to know if they're available, how fast they can respond, how quickly they can jump in if something goes wrong.
Sounds like we're putting together a whole event planning SWAT team here.
Kinda, yeah. Having those backups ready to go will give you peace of mind so you can adapt quickly if something unexpected happens.
For sure. You don't want to be scrambling at the last minute. But with all these moving parts, we're talking budgets, vendors, creating programs. How do you even keep track of everything?
Well, that's where Indeed's advice on timelines and checklists comes in. Breaking down the event into smaller parts, setting deadlines for each task, it makes it way less overwhelming.
So you're saying my scribbled notes on a napkin aren't going to cut it?
Probably not. Think of a timeline as your lifeline, your project management tool that keeps everyone on track so nothing falls through the cracks.
Gotcha. I'm liking this organized approach. Now, before we get into timelines, what about capturing those special moments? The article mentioned photographers and
Oh
videographers.
yeah, those are important. Think back to events you've been to. What do you remember most?
Hmm. I guess it's those images that stick with you, right? Like the speaker's face when they're talking about something they're passionate about, or people laughing and just the energy of the crowd.
Exactly. Photos and videos, those are powerful. They can capture those little moments, emotions, connections that might fade from your memory later.
Yeah, so it's more than just pretty pictures. It's about documenting the whole heart of the event.
Right, and those visuals can actually be super helpful when you're promoting your next event, too.
Oh yeah, people love to see what they're going to experience beforehand.
High quality photos and videos, those are your marketing gold. People will be more excited to come if they can actually get a feel for what it's like.
So we're capturing the magic, telling the story visually, and then using those visuals to attract even more people to the next one. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it leads us to another really crucial thing that Indeed talks about a lot. Networking and communication. Those are like your secret weapons in event planning.
Okay, I get the communication part,
Mhm.
especially working with all those different vendors. But what about networking? Is it just about going to fancy parties and shaking hands?
It's definitely not just that. It's about building relationships. It's like putting together a team of people you can trust, people who get your vision and can help you make it a reality.
So it's more about finding the right people, the right vendors, people you click with, not just anyone who can do the job.
Exactly. And that's where networking comes in. Going to industry events, reaching out to other people who plan events, building connections with different vendors. It's all part of growing that network that'll support you through the whole process.
That makes a lot of sense. Speaking of support, we all know life throws us curveballs, right? Things don't always go exactly as planned.
Oh, absolutely. Indeed, talks about how important it is to be prepared for challenges and have backup plans for just about everything.
Makes sense. I still remember that time the power went out right in the middle of a presentation I was giving.
Oh, no.
It was so awkward. So, what kind of things should event planners be ready for?
Well, think about the things you can't control. The weather, technology, sometimes even vendors cancel at the last minute.
Mm.
You got to have plans in place for those what if moments.
So if you're planning something outdoors, maybe have a backup indoor venue just in case the weather decides to have a mind of its own.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And if you're relying a lot on tech, having extra equipment and people who know how to fix it, super important.
makes sense. I'm starting to feel a lot more prepared already. But even with all these plans, how do you get people pumped for the event? How do you create that buzz that gets everyone talking?
Well, Indeed gets into the whole social media game. Using it strategically to promote your event. It's about capturing people's attention, sparking their curiosity, making them feel like they got to be there.
I'm thinking about those campaigns that just go viral and everyone's talking about them.
Exactly. So we're not just posting a flyer online. We're talking about eye-catching visual sneak peeks behind the scenes, stuff that people can interact with. You can do contests, create a hashtag, even work with people who have a big following online to spread the word.
It's almost like we're tapping into the power of storytelling, to build up excitement and get people ready for the main event.
You got it. But here's something we often forget. Even after it's all over, there's one last task that nobody loves but is super important.
Let me guess. Cleanup.
Yeah, it's like that after party nobody wants to attend, but we got to do it.
Indeed reminds us to think about cleanup when we're making the budget and the timeline.
Absolutely. It's not just about making things look nice. It's about leaving the place the way you found it. Sometimes that means hiring a cleaning crew or getting some volunteers.
So we've come a long way from that North Star goal to the dreaded cleanup. But how do we know if all that hard work paid off? How do we know if the event was actually a success?
Indeed talks about this too. Gathering feedback is super important. Even the most experienced event planners know that there's always room for improvement.
So it's not just about, celebrating a successful event. It's about taking the time to learn from it even if it means getting some constructive criticism.
You got it. Feedback helps you figure out what worked well, what could be better, and what surprised you. It's the best way to improve for next time.
It's like each event's a learning experience. We're always growing and getting better.
Exactly. And, there's a really important point that Indeed kind of hints at but doesn't fully come out and say. Event planning, it's really all about creating an experience. It's not just about logistics and checklists. It's about, creating a narrative, a journey for your attendees.
So we're not just event planners, we're storytellers.
Yeah, precisely. And every detail matters, like the venue's ambiance to the carefully planned program. Everything contributes to that story.
Wow, I'm starting to see this whole event planning thing in a whole new light, like we're weaving a tapestry of moments, emotions, connections.
And that's the power of events, bringing people together, sparking those conversations, creating those memories that last.
It's funny, we always talk about the obvious stuff at events, like the food, the decorations, the entertainment. But what actually makes an event stick with you are those things you can't really touch.
You're right. It's that feeling of belonging, the laughter, the sense of wonder. Those are the things people remember long after the event's over.
Indeed, mentioned that we got to think about the audience, and I think that's key to making those memories.
Yeah, it's all about understanding why they're there, what they're hoping for, and then making sure the event really clicks with them on a deeper level.
So like if you're planning a big corporate conference, it's going to have a different vibe than a chill backyard barbecue, right?
Exactly. The tone, the activities, the whole atmosphere should match the people who are coming and the reason you're having the event.
Which brings us back to that North Star idea.
Right. That guiding principle helps you stay focused on the big picture and make sure you're creating something that aligns with the event's core purpose.
It's like a compass that keeps you going in the right direction.
Love that analogy. And it Indeed also talked about clear communication, which also connects to this idea of crafting an experience.
Haha, so.
Well, when everyone on the same page, your team, your vendors, even the people attending, when they all understand the vision, the story, it creates a sense of purpose for everyone.
So like we're all working together to create something special, something that goes beyond just getting things done.
Right. It's like we're all actors in this big play, and everyone has their part to make the story come to life.
And the audience, the attendees, they become a part of the story too.
Yeah, for sure. Their energy, their interactions, everything they do adds to the whole experience.
This conversation has really opened my eyes. Event planning is so much more than just the logistics.
It's about being creative, understanding people, and how to connect them.
It's about making moments that matter, moments that bring joy, inspiration, and that feeling of shared experience.
And in the end, it's about giving people something to hold on to, a feeling, a memory, a story that they take with them.
Speaking of stories, the Indeed article talked about visuals, and I think those are perfect for capturing the true essence of an event.
I agree. Photographs and videos, they're not just a record of what happened. They're like a window into those feelings, the energy, the connections.
They let us go back to those moments, share them with others, and keep the story alive.
Indeed mentioned using social media to promote events, and I think that's another way to use the power of stories.
By sharing behind-the-scenes stuff and creating content that gets people excited before the event even starts.
Exactly. It's about giving them a little taste of what they can expect and making them want to be a part of it.
And then after the event, social media can help share the story even further.
Yeah, people who attended can share their thoughts, their favorite moments, adding their own perspectives to the story.
It's like we're making this tapestry of stories all woven together.
And all those stories together, they can have a bigger impact, reaching people far beyond those who are actually there.
Indeed also talked about the importance of getting feedback. And I think that's so important for anyone who's telling a story.
You got to listen to your audience, see how they experience the story, and then learn from that so you can make your next event even better.
It's like this constant cycle of learning and improving.
Exactly, because the best storytellers are always learning and finding new ways to connect with their audience.
This whole conversation has been so inspiring. It's like we've unlocked the secret to making events truly amazing.
The secret is to remember that it's not just about checking things off a list. It's about creating an experience, telling a story that connects with your audience on a deeper level.
It's about making moments that matter. Moments filled with joy, connection, and a shared purpose.
And that's what makes event planning so rewarding.
So well said. As we wrap up our deep dive into event planning, I think we've learned so much.
Yeah, from finding that North Star to harnessing the power of storytelling, we've really explored what it takes to turn ordinary gatherings into something truly special.
So as you go on your own event planning adventures, be creative. Be ready for anything and never forget about that human connection at the heart of it all.
Wow, yeah. I feel like we really went deep on this one. Indeed gave us a great starting point. But by adding that storytelling element, it's like we unlocked a whole new level of event planning.
I totally agree. It's that extra layer that makes an event really special.
So thinking back on everything we talked about, what surprised you the most? Or maybe what do you think people often overlook when they're planning an event? That's a good question. It's so easy to get stuck in the details and the logistics, but I think the emotional side of things, that's what often gets missed.
You mean like the feelings we're trying to create for the people who come to the event?
Exactly. And not just the attendees, the whole team, everyone involved. When you're excited about what you're creating, that energy spreads.
It's kind of like that saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So maybe for event planning, it's more like if you love the story you're telling, the event will plan itself. Okay, maybe not that easy, but
But you're right, there's something to that. When you're really passionate about making something meaningful, the challenges don't seem so hard and the whole process is just more fun.
so it's not just about checking things off a list, it's about putting your heart into it.
Absolutely. And that takes us back to that idea of the event as a story. What do you want people to feel when they leave? Inspired, connected, maybe ready to take on the world.
I can picture someone walking out of an event with their head buzzing with new ideas or feeling like they belong to something bigger than themselves. That's pretty powerful.
It really is. And those feelings, those lasting impressions, that's what makes an event a success.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one last piece of advice you'd give to someone who wants to get into event planning?
Don't be afraid to try new things, to think outside the box. Break the rules a little and find creative ways to make your vision a reality.
So it's not about following a strict formula, it's about making it your own.
Exactly. And remember, event planning, it's a journey, not just a destination. There will be challenges, but those are all part of the creative process.
Well said. I think that's the perfect way to end this deep dive. Embrace the journey, tell your story, and create something amazing.
Couldn't agree more.
Thanks for joining us for this exploration of event planning. We hope you learned a thing or two and that you're feeling inspired to go out there and create your own unforgettable events.
And until next time, happy planning, everyone.